Hello there, everyone. It's Mr. E here again today with a different sort of video. This is an educational series. In this series, I'm not going to give you information so much as tell you the sort of information you will need to advance from one difficulty in Darktide or one experience level in Darktide to the next. And the way this series is going to be broken down is this first episode is going to be generalized tips that can apply to everyone. The second video in the series is going to mainly be directed at players who are very new to the game. Between 0 and 50 hours played, they're probably still on the first or second difficulties. The third one is going to be targeted to players in that intermediate range, for normal people at least, between 50 and 200 hours. They're probably on Malice or Heresy, the third and fourth difficulties. And the final video will be focused on players who are attempting level 5 difficulty and above. So they have above 200 hours. Your experience, your mileage may vary depending on your past expertise in games like this. Maybe you played Vermintide, maybe you played Left 4 Dead, maybe you have shooter experience. Hopefully there's some tips in each of those for everyone. I'll be giving sort of like sample loadouts that you should probably be exploiting to overcome the challenges that those difficulties can pose, and as well as ways we can tweak those past builds now that we are growing a little bit as players. But for today, let's just focus on these generalized tips. Like I actually didn't say before, but I do have another tutorial series that gives very more specific mechanical advice about how Darktide works. If that is more the speed that you're interested in, or you'd just like to reference that as well, just scroll back on my channel for a good bit. It was maybe a couple months ago at this point, but it's evergreen information. It's correct information about how, blocking, stamina, all that sort of good stuff works. And I think it can be very helpful, especially if you're just learning the very basics of Darktide. So there's 4 episodes of that talking all about specials and all that good stuff. Everything is there. And the other thing I'll say is if you like this sort of content, give it a like, give it a subscribe. Let me know to keep making it in the comments. And that'll encourage me to keep making more casual sort of talking with you about the learning process, the growing process for Darktide. That's one of the coolest things about this game is it has such an incredible wealth of skills and mechanics and information to learn, and we are all constantly growing and learning. And there's literally yesterday I learned how a talent actually worked, and it blew my mind. I've been sleeping on this thing for so long, but with that being said, let us get into the first of 4 generalized tips for all players of all skill levels can use these. So the first 2 tips here are really, if they don't apply to you, they won't apply to you. But the second 2, I 100% guarantee they apply to you regardless of who you are in the world. Oh, and by the way, about these apple trees and this guy right here, just ignore them for now. We'll get to that on tip number 3. So the first tip is you need to be using a keyboard and mouse. Keyboard and mouse is the supreme way to play this game. A fellow YouTuber who has a bit of a polarizing personality is a very firm believer that you can achieve anything with enough determination. It's all about your drive to do it and your motivation to learn the skills, etc., etc. That's true, except for if you're using controller, because controller literally has a cap on how fast you can turn, and you will never be able to whip your head around and with the precision and speed as you can with a mouse. And there's a lot of very high level techniques, especially as you advance in experience in this game. You'll want to attempt more precision skills like Squire's Gaze that require you to click on heads, that require you to very rapidly turn your mouse to reposition your character and to move in accordance with where the enemies are. So if you are playing with controller and you have the option to go to keyboard and mouse, absolutely 100% do. It might be an uncomfortable transition at first, especially if you're a controller native, but it does not take very long at all to learn, and your experience will thank me. So definitely do that. We are in the year 2024. I don't know everything about how Xbox players work, but I have to imagine that there is some way you could get a wireless keyboard and mouse set up and just lay it on a tray across your lap or something. There has to be a way you could do that. Even playing on an Xbox is a disadvantage to start, but Yeah, please do try to get a mouse and keyboard. It pains me to see players that are stuck on controller and trying to improve. It's really going to hold you back. Okay, second tip is very much related in that vein. It's another gear-related tip, which is you need to be wearing headphones for this game. Darktide is an incredibly sound-intensive game. You can learn so much about the threats that you're facing and the environment that you're in, and where you need to be looking and aiming and what you need to be doing to respond to enemies and their actions based on the sound of the environment. It's to the point where, I mean, I wouldn't say I would play a game blindfolded, but if you gave me the choice between playing games without my glasses or without my headphones, I would 100% choose without my glasses, because as long as I can generally see what's in front of me on the screen, I can do so much stuff with just sound. I can dodge incoming range attacks, including snipers. I can dodge attacks that are coming from behind me. I can parry attacks that are behind me. I can tell when trappers and dogs, any elite has spawned, which direction they're coming from. All of the biggest threats in this game are sound cued. You can know when a boss is dropping a dangerous attack that's exploitable to retaliate, right? Sound cues are extremely important, and as you play more and more, learn about sound cues, you will begin to develop this sort of like superhuman ear, where as soon as you hear the faintest like of a trapper, your ear will perk up and you'll be looking in the right direction to deal with them. Because generally in this game, you don't die when you're prepared to die. You die when you are surprised by something you didn't see coming, whether it be like a flame grenade coming into a bad position or a trapper out of nowhere. Now, granted, sometimes trappers don't announce themselves auditorily, but definitely wear headphones with directional audio. Again, I think I'm mostly talking to couch-based folks who are console gaming, but you can get headphones for that and have directional audio. I guess if you have a surround sound setup, it might work okay, but I trust nothing more than I have Sennheiser's HD 598 or something like that. And these things, I trust them with my life. They are very good at providing me information I need. All right, now that we've covered our first two generalized tips, let's go on to tip number 3, that no matter who you are, I guarantee this is going to be applicable to you. Tip number 3. Now, you're all very eager to know how these apples and stuff come in here, but first I need to explain a psychological concept to you, and this is the concept called zone of proximal development. What that means is this is the area just outside of our current realm of expertise or knowledge or mastery, wherever that level is for various individuals that we're talking about here, in which we do the best learning. It is just outside of our comfort zone. It is foreign enough. There's lots of different things to learn. We're immersed in the experience and we're taking in all this information. No matter who you are, how stupid you are, how smart you are, your brain is very good at taking in new information, especially if it's immersed in it. That's why people who want to learn new languages, they often do like travel abroad and stuff like that in schools in order to be immersed in the language. So our zone of proximal development is just a fancy way of saying, okay, this is the stuff that's within our reach that we can learn. However, it's not so far out of our reach that it becomes sort of a beat down trying to get that information. You'd want to have like, the understandings of how to ask, where the bathroom is and donde es la biblioteca when you are going to Mexico to learn Spanish. You don't want to just be dropped in there and be like, what's Spanish, right? That would not be a good experience. And so to further explain this concept, I want to show what happens if you are not within your zone of proximal development and learning in this game or in real life. And so to exemplify that, here we have what is statistically you, viewer, this roughly white male aged between, I think 18 and 28. This is you. And what's happening on this given day is I've asked you to go apple picking with me. We're going out, it's me, 2 other guys, and you, and we're gonna go apple picking. Now, you've never been apple picking before, and all 3 of us have. So we're gonna go out to the orchard, and you're coming with us, and we're like, oh no, it's cool, it's a good time. All we gotta do is we gotta fill this basket full of apples, and we're all gonna have our own trees. You can pick on our trees, you can pick on your own tree. It's fine. We just gotta fill this thing. It's cooperative, right? So you're nervous about it because you've only ever been pear picking before, and pear trees are much smaller. These apple trees are like 20 plus feet high. There's no gear to speak of, like, to climbing gear or anything. You're guessing that just everyone's just gonna go out there and like just start climbing the trees. You have no idea how this is done, right? So you're just nervous as all get out, but you agree to do it because of peer pressure. And you get out there, and I'm like, all right, well, let's go ahead and start picking, random viewer. And so we all start picking these apples. The three of us, we head right into it. We're naturals at this point, right? We start climbing the trees. We're climbing up there. We're tossing apples down. We're throwing them into the basket or around the basket. And then you are left standing there like, I don't really know what to do. So, I mean, what can you do in this situation? You don't know how to climb a tree, so you just kind of run around the edges and you pluck what apples you can from the lowest hanging branches. You might scurry around and pick up some of the apples that almost made it in the basket, but not quite. And then, like, when the boss apple comes out, you kind of get a few punches in on him, but you're kind of scared to do any more damage than that because you're afraid that he might one-shot you on this difficulty. So you kind of play it really safe. And at the end of all the apple picking, we're all collecting our apples, and you reflect on what the day was like. And, to be honest, you had a couple of bad falls out of the tree when you were trying to climb it, and you felt really guilty because everyone had to pick you up multiple times, and everyone kept telling you, like, it's okay. Like, people fall down when they're picking apples, especially your first time. It's okay. But in the back of your mind, that they really felt like, shitty about having to drag you along to this thing. Like, they felt like they were carrying you at apple picking. And so, when everyone's done collecting their apples and they're all like divvying them up, they're all saying, GG, nice apple picking. And you feel bad about it. So you say, yeah, sorry about, falling out of the tree so many times back there. And then, these people, they don't care. I don't care, and my friends that are apple picking with us don't care. So we all just kind of, we're moving on to the next apple picking game. So we all just kind of like don't say anything, move on. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh my God, that was the worst experience of my fucking life. I'm never ever doing this again. I'm going back to pear picking, and I'm never ever trying to apple pick again. This was way out of my league. I don't know what I was thinking by coming here. Fuck this. So that is my metaphor for the experience of perhaps you, viewer. I know you are out there. You are a viewer who you have attempted damnation with friends before, and you got your ass kicked. You absolutely did not have the prerequisite skills to attempt damnation. You've never played anything past malice. There were enemies you've never fucking seen. You've seen one crusher in 10 runs. There were 5 crushers within 10 feet of each other in damnation. How are you supposed to deal with that, right? You are completely out of your league. And how likely do you think it is that you, viewer, are going to go back there and pick apples again with me and my friends, now that we dragged you completely out of your element with no training or forward to get you out there? Not very likely, right? So what could we have done to prep you better? Or what could you have done to prep better for this apple picking outing, knowing that you didn't really have the prerequisite skills necessary? Well, you need to bring what elitist gamers would call a crutch. So in this case, that would be something like a ladder, right? This ladder is going to allow you to extend your zone of proximal development. You might not have been skilled enough naturally at climbing trees and all that stuff to go and pick the apples on your own, but with a ladder by your side, or, say, a plasma gun, right, you would be much more competent. You would contribute a lot more at picking those apples. You would feel much more sure on your feet. So here is my tip number 3 to you, viewer, assuming this is you, and it probably is if you're a player who's anywhere near that middle of the bracket. When you are pushing to a higher difficulty, something you have never done before, use what is called in educational language scaffolding, or in video game language, a crutch. Use the most powerful, most OP build, weapon, whatever it is, combination thereof, to bridge the gap between yourself and that difficulty. Now, there is no substitute for having some base level of skill. A player who's has been playing for 1 hour should probably not be in damnation, but a player who's been playing for is doing malice with some frequency, if you slap a plasma gun on a shout vet and throw them into damnation, they can contribute. They can shout and not take very much damage. They can blast stuff with the plasma gun. It's going to be a much easier experience than saying, "Hey, just grab your machine pistol and your your gray Katachan sword and just come on, let's go." You need to be using everything at your disposal to elevate your play so that you can dip your toes into that next level. Because if you stay picking pairs forever, if you only pick pairs on Heresy and Malice, you are never going to understand the baseline skills that are required to pick apples. They're fundamentally different. The play on Damnation, the apple picking, is just completely different than pair picking, and you have to do it to understand how to play it. So this is going to dovetail very nicely into point number 4, which we'll get to in a second, but I'm going to reiterate one more time. Use the most OP stuff available. It doesn't matter if anyone doesn't like it. However, I've never heard of anyone complaining about someone bringing a shout vet with a plasma gun to a game. Use it so that you can upgrade your skills and be able to jump into the next difficulty. And then when you feel like you're sure enough and can swim on your own, downgrade the weapons and use whatever you want to use until it starts to get difficult again. All right, tip number 4. As I said just a moment ago, it's going to dovetail very nicely with what we just talked about in tip number 3. Tip number 4 is that you should be upgrading your difficulty, challenging yourself whenever possible. Whenever you think you might be ready for the next difficulty, it's time to jump it up. If you get cold feet about it, you will never do it. And here, viewer, again, I am inside your mind. I know you because statistically, a lot of you are exactly like this. And I know that's true because I've talked to a number of you in game about it. What's going to happen, or what happens in your daily life, is this. You wake up. It's a lovely weekend. You say, it's time to play some Darktide. You sit down, you say, well, let's play Heresy. Heresy's nice and comfy. It's early in the morning. I haven't gotten a chance to warm up yet. You play a couple games. Damn, you got your ass kicked. You actually pulled a demon host on your group and kind of caused a bit of an almost wipe there. You just generally fucked up. You don't have scoreboard bot or anything, but you just don't feel like you did very good. So you kind of, brush off your wounds and you go to Wawa and you grab yourself a sub and a drink and you come back, you eat, and then you sit down and you play a couple more games of Heresy. And this time, let me tell you, you clean up. You absolutely, again, you can't tell because you don't have a scoreboard mod, but you feel like you're on top of the world. You were saving your allies. There was even kind of a clutch moment where it was just you and another guy and he got dogged. So if you didn't save him, the whole game could have been over. So you performed really well in those games. And right at this moment, as you finish that second game, you have this thought. This is the thought you have. You say, oh, well, that was pretty good. Honestly, Heresy isn't that bad. Maybe I should try Damnation. But then the darkness, the thoughts start to creep in. Well, what about those 2 games I just played earlier? Well, what about the other day when I got carried by my friends in Damnation? I didn't do anything. Here's what I'll do. You cope to yourself. I'll play 3 more games of Heresy. And if all 3 of those games goes as those last 2 did, then I'll try Damnation. So you play 3 more games of Heresy, and they go kind of mid. And you say, all right, well, those weren't amazing, and it's gotten kind of late at this point. So, I'll probably, maybe I'll do Damnation tomorrow, but I'll probably start again with Heresy, and then if those first games go good, then I'll do Damnation. And congratulations, viewer, you have locked yourself into being a perma-Heresy player, or a perma-whatever difficulty this is for you. You have convinced yourself that it is too scary, it's too difficult to go to that next level, that the people who play at Damnation are the best players in the world. I mean, surely only 1% of players play at Damnation, right? That difficulty is impossibly hard. And if I go in there with anything less than full 20 mastery on both of my weapons and level 4 blessings and a level 30 character with absolutely optimal, oh fuck, I need to check Tanner Lindbergh's guide to make sure that my build is optimal, right? If it's not, they're gonna look at my build and they're gonna call me dog shit, and I'm gonna be banned from playing on Damnation ever again. All those thoughts are what goes through your mind, and congratulations, you've stuck yourself into being a heresy main. And that's not where we want to be, right? Did you hear where you went wrong? It was on that day one when you did those good games and you had that first thought about playing Damnation. The correct response there was what? It was just play Damnation, right? Just go ahead and just queue it up. And if you're feeling really unsure about that, grab the fucking plasma gun and queue it up, right? Grab the plasma gun and shout vet. That way you know no one's going to call you dog shit, because you're going to probably put out more damage than at least a couple of people on the team, and you're going to be protecting the team from damage with shout. No one's going to be mad to have you there. In fact, in 99.9% of games, you will not have anyone that says anything about literally anything. They'll say GLHF maybe at the beginning, usually nobody says anything, but they'll say GG at the end, and that's the only communication that anyone has the entire game. No one talks in voice chat. That is 99% of games. I have had very, very, very rare experiences where anyone has actually said anything, especially anything negative, unwarranted negative stuff, where like out of nowhere someone is like, dude, you are dog shit. I think that's maybe happened in one game in my 1,500 hours. So do not be scared of that hypothetical person. It can be really hard to ignore those sorts of people, viewer. They are very persistent and they will suck the fun out of anything. And they are out there. They're trying to get you. I know personally because I just did an apple picking excursion a few days ago, a solo apple pick, and I posted it onto YouTube. You might have seen it. I streamed it, and people were really, really positive about it. And I was super enthused about it. I saw 99% of the comments are like, whoa, this guy's the goat of apple picking. Oh my God, I didn't know you could pick apples like that. Oh wow. Did you see when he picked that apple at like 32, 33? And I was like, wow, this feels amazing. It might not be the biggest achievement in the world, because sure, I use the biggest possible ladder. I use gloves. I use all that stuff. But, I still felt proud. Obviously, I felt proud enough, and it was fun enough that I wanted to post it on my YouTube channel. But no, here come the fucking fun police. Here come these sort of shitheads who will criticize you for using a powerful gun in a game to overcome a big challenge, right? These are the people that say, oh no, ladders are not allowed to pick apples, okay? If you're using a ladder, you're basically cheating half of the game. The actual skill is in climbing the tree. And if you're using gloves, you're actually breaking the AI of the thorns that are on the apple trees. You're completely removing the tertiary challenges in there. Hey, fun police. If this is your whole fucking life, I've got some better recommendations for you than being in my fucking comments and policing my fun. Go fuck yourself and die. And I really do mean that, because you are the only person, dear fun police, that's going to want to fuck you for however long your life ends up being. And if you died, it would actually be considered euthanasia, because otherwise you might live long enough to have this unfortunate realization in 5 years when no one is fucking apple picking anymore, when no one is watching videos about apple picking, when no one gives a shit about how good you were at apple picking, that thank God I policed those comments and made sure that everyone understood what is considered proper and good apple picking, even if 99.99% of all the people I interacted with came away thinking that I'm a worthless piece of shit and they fucking hate me. That was certainly worth it, right? And then you'll tell yourself that certainly couldn't be related to how poorly the rest of my life has gone, how alone I am in life. But it really does, because it's kind of almost exactly like that one time in middle school when you used to go over to your friend Jake's house every Friday to play video games with all your friends. And then there was that one time where you had this autistic meltdown because you got way too competitive over this certain video game that you were all playing. And then your mom stopped getting the phone calls on Friday to invite you over to Jake's house. And you told yourself it's just because Jake went to a different high school than you did, but all your other friends still go to the same school as you, right? And they're all over at Jake's house every Friday, and you know that because you call them and say, hey dude, you want to come over and see how good I am at apple picker? And they say, no dude, I'm actually hanging out with Jake. But that's okay, because you still have your apple picking, and you've got lots of time in the weekends now to focus on your apple picking, and that's great. And then a few years go by, and you get that job, and you're new at the job. And some of the people there, they invite you out, and you think, oh, wow, they invited me out. They must think I'm an okay person. But that's actually just their mistake, because they hadn't evaluated you properly. They thought you were a decent, normal person and not a fucking asshole. And there's this girl there who you spend all your time sort of looking at from a distance instead of talking to her, because you're just sort of fucking socially awkward creep like that who spends all their time on the internet posting pedantic little comments. And you go up to her and you talk to her, and she shares something with you, and it's kind of dorky and kind of sweet. At least that's what she thinks. But in your head, your fucked up little head, you think, oh, that's cringe. cringe. And then instead of like nodding and smiling and talking through it like a normal person would do and just getting onto something else to talk about, you just couldn't fucking help yourself. You couldn't fucking help yourself, could you? There's something wrong and fundamentally broken with you where you just told this girl straight to her face that you thought that was cringe and lame, and she just awkwardly laughs, but you could see it in her eyes. She's just kind of done with the conversation right then and there, and then she never actually talks to you again after that. And then other people at work stop talking to you because, you know, you're pretty much convinced that she just went around and told everyone lies about you, probably, right? Just because she's probably on her period, and she's a fucking emotional woman, that fucking bitch. Fuck women. It's okay though. You don't need women. You don't need love in your life. You don't need anyone. You still have your apple picking. You go home, you jerk your dick raw for 8 hours a night thinking about how good you are at apple picking. And then you look at the comments on apple picking videos and make sure that no one is having any fun without your explicit approval. And that night, you wake up in a cold sweat because you realize that now that no one cares about apple picking anymore, you've lost any sense of identity you might have had. So you very quickly realize that Apple Picker 2 is coming out, and that could be your new sense of identity. So you pick up your fucking goalposts and you plop them down in that community and you gatekeep the absolute fuck out of it so that no one can have any fun or think anything is skillful or joyful without your explicit permission. Sure, nobody watches your videos about Apple Picker 2, but that couldn't be because they don't because they appreciate real skill, right? It couldn't be because your personality is absolute dog shit and you radiate shitty energy and you're a wet fucking blanket in every aspect of your life. Yes, it is, Apple Picker. You are a piece of shit and an asshole to everyone you encounter. And I know that because there is a 100% correlation between this sort of behavior online and that sort of behavior in real life. So you've got choices here. Two choices. Either clean up your fucking act and stop shitting all over things that people actually care about and are excited to do, or fucking rope and save the rest of us the effort of having to read your worthless, meaningless, pedantic little bitch comments. So there you go, viewer. You could just read that out to them verbatim if you ever encounter one of these delightful individuals in the wild. And I hope that helps you to sort of overcome any fears you might have of plunging into the higher difficulties in Darktide, the higher difficulties in anything in life. You might actually be interested in real life apple picking. But that being said, that's all the tips I have for general learning in Darktide. I hope you'll join me next time where we'll go over some very beginner tips, such as loadouts that I think will help you to combat the initial hurdles that we can face when we're first taking the plunge into Warhammer 40k Darktide. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you all very much. And until then, Mr. E out.